This is Michael Popak, Legal AF. We got new reporting out of the Washington Post that just shows how delusional and trading and magical thinking Donald Trump has been about his abilities to get out of obstruction and espionage charges and not have to ever return the people's documents, national security defense information, and confidential information, top secret, that he stole. It just shows you how mired in denial Donald Trump has been, because there's new reporting out of the Washington Post that at least 2 separate lawyers have been counseling him from the very beginning, at least since the search warrant was executed by the Department of Justice in August, even before Merrick Garland appointed special counsel Jack Smith and put him on the scene. There was opportunities to approach the Department of Justice and Merrick Garland to try to resolve the issues, return the documents, apologize, and have the criminal investigation end. Chris Kise, you might remember that name because he was one of the 2 lawyers for Donald Trump in the Miami courthouse and in the courtroom just recently for his arraignment, Donald Trump's arraignment there. Chris Kise having left his major law firm, Foley and Lardner, over a year ago to open his own shop in Miami, really with one major client, Donald Trump, and took $5.5 million in legal fees from Trump's Save America PAC. That Chris Kise. Chris Kise apparently was the only voice of reason, according to at least 3 corroborating sources reported in the Washington Post, because he went to Donald Trump and said, hey, this is my artist rendering, hey, Donald, former president, 45, listen to me. The search warrant didn't go well for you. They have found top secret classified documents, including at least 100 of them. You've seen it. There's photos of them with rulers and strewn out on your floor, found them in your desk drawer, different places. Authorize me, Chris Kise, as your lawyer, to approach the Department of Justice and try to resolve this before it gets worse. And the get worse means you get indicted and convicted of crimes. And I'm sure he outlined for them. Could be Espionage Act, could be obstruction of justice, could be a lot of things that are really, really bad. Let me make that phone call. Donald Trump said no, according to sources. Instead, he relied on, I almost said an astrologer, like Nancy Reagan. The person might as well be an astrologer. He relied on Tom Fitton, Fitton, It's easy to remember his name because he always wears on YouTube a polo shirt that doesn't fit him. It's usually 2 or 3 sizes too small. He runs a thing called Judicial Watch, a right-wing MAGA. I guess it's sort of like Legal AF for MAGA, except he's not an attorney. You know, everybody that's associated with Legal AF are practicing lawyers in courthouses and do federal and state practice. Tom Fitton just, doesn't like Democrats and wears tight polo shirts. That seems to be his qualifications. And he brings these cockamamie lawsuits that usually almost always lose. And so he is a Trump whisperer. He's been whispering into the ear of Donald Trump for a long, long time. So much so that the Jack Smith brought Fitton in and other witnesses to talk about Fitton in front of the grand juries about his role in Mar-a-Lago, because it's been well known to the prosecutors that Tom Fitton talked Donald Trump, or at least encouraged him, supported him about not returning the documents. Top secret, classified, national security, 5 eyes only, the nation's nuclear codes and plans, war plans related to the allies and the enemies, all of that. He relied on Tom Fitton, much to the frustration of somebody who's a legitimate lawyer, who's argued in front of the U.S. Supreme Court 6 times, Chris Kise. But Donald Trump listens to Fitton for obvious reasons, because Fitton is telling him what he wants to hear, right? And then he can point to Fitton, which was maddening to the real lawyers around Donald Trump. Like, why are you listening to that guy? That guy's about you might as well talk to your butler, valet, body guy, Walt Nauta. He knows about as much about the law. He's gone to law school as much and practiced in the courtrooms. And the case that Fitton loves to talk about is a case he lost as a plaintiff, not as a lawyer. Again, I don't know if you're picking this up from the hot take. Tom Fitton is not a lawyer. It's crackpot. And he told Donald Trump, well, I had a case involving Bill Clinton and some audio tapes that Bill Clinton kept for his future book and memoir that he kept in a sock drawer, not making it up, when he was being interviewed by Taylor Branch, a reporter. And there was an argument because Fitton wanted to hear the tapes. He tried to argue those were presidential records. right? The musings of Bill Clinton in order to write a book with an author are presidential records. That lost. We refer to that jokingly on the MeidasTouch network as the socks case. Not the cat that Clinton had, but the drawer where he kept the tapes. But that's the precedent. And I use that term so loosely with Tom Fitton because it's not legal precedent, and he lost. But that's what he kept citing, apparently, to Donald Trump. The Sox case, the Clinton tapes. You don't have to return those, Mr. President. They're yours. They're always yours. Presidential Record Act, blah, blah, blah. Even today, Tom Fitton, even though he's gone into the grand jury, testified, he knows that other people have testified against him in the grand jury about his role in Mar-a-Lago. He's not chased. He's not doesn't have his tail between his legs. He reports just this week that he had, filet mignon dinner with Donald Trump, who was in good spirits at Mar-a-Lago the night before the criminal arraignment. And then starts spouting out, I don't know how to put this, mad as a hatter, crazy crap that makes no sense, even in English, about the indictment. He said things, and I had to write it down and read it twice because I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure what was going on here, if he was impaired in some way. But Tom Fitton told the press that he's upset that Donald Trump's attorneys, the real lawyers that actually have bar licenses at present, aren't saying, I took this to be obstruction. I took this to be obstruction. He's either in weird pidgin English trying to say that Donald Trump needed to somewhere declare that the reason he took the documents was to be obstructionist. That's my best translation of I took this to be obstruction, this kind of caveman analysis by Tom Fitton caught on the fly by the press. I don't know what else that means. It's not in English. You couldn't repeat that or recite that in a courtroom and have it be effective with a judge. I took this to be obstruction. I mean, MeidasTouch might want to consider putting that on a t-shirt, a really super tight, extra small Tom Fitton style t-shirt I took this to be obstruction, hashed Donald Trump. That's not a defense. The guy who's being charged with Espionage Act doesn't actually have to declare that, Tom. The facts, circumstantial, actual facts, or otherwise, establish the obstruction. That's one lawyer that got rejected by Donald Trump after the search warrant was executed, and then in the fall of 2021, Chris Kice. But there was an earlier lawyer that we don't talk about a lot, but is in the indictment, except not by name. So Alex Cannon, who you probably don't remember, and is not related to Judge Eileen Cannon, another coincidental name occurrence. But Alex Cannon represented Donald Trump for things related to the Presidential Records Act and the return of the documents originally after he left office. Because in the beginning, the first 6 months or a year, all right, you work it out, Donald. You pull out the things that Alina Habba says, or you pull out your dirty shoes and pictures of you with, dictators and all the things you wanted to, keep that are legitimately either gifts that were properly recorded or your own mementos in some way. But everything else goes back, including those 84 boxes that you were hiding from the National Archive for the longest time until the search warrant ripped them from your not cold, dead fingers. You had an opportunity to settle, resolve, return. And Alex Cannon was leading that charge while you were still in the White House and then just after you left. And you tried to bamboozle him and get him involved in your conspiracy. And that's why he's listed as Trump representative number 1 in the indictment, Alex Cannon. You'll now go down in history. Now in your wiki or in your obituary, it will say that you were Trump representative number 1 in the indictment of Donald Trump. But not because you did anything potentially wrong, although you did testify before the grand jury. It's because Donald Trump tried to defraud you and have you participate in a fraud or crime, because he knew he had 84 or more boxes of documents, 84, for those that are listening to this on a podcast, and went through them himself, according to the indictment. Donald Trump did. He had them brought one at a time to Mar-a-Lago and then Bedminster, and he started searching through them like a mad hoarder, looking for things he wanted to keep and trying to spoon feed the National Archive in the return of the documents under the Presidential Records Act and law, criminal law. And he gave through Alex Cannon, the National Archive, 15 boxes, self-selected by Donald Trump himself, knowing at that time that there were 84 boxes and over 100 top secret documents that he was keeping, right, and hiding from his lawyers and those around him. And he sold Alex Cannon. Why don't we just tell him that's all we got? Give him the 15. See if that works. That's the dress rehearsal for a crime that then Chief Judge Beryl Howell remarked on when she stripped the attorney-client privilege away from Evan Corcoran and all the other lawyers. That's the crime fraud. That initial crime fraud. There were other badges of fraud Donald Trump earned, but that's one of the major ones, and that's Alex Cannon's role. So he could have solved the problem, Donald Trump, for those of his continued followers, which are amazing to me, that cling to him like a cult figure, cult leader. He had multiple opportunities to do the right thing, return the people's documents and national defense and information. 3 months after he left office, 6 months after he left office, 1 year after he left office, in response to the subpoena that a grand jury issued, and return all the documents and work out your deal. He's not indicted yet on this timeline. He's not even indicted the day and the days after the search warrant is executed by FBI in August at Mar-a-Lago. He still has time to avoid indictment. He just got indicted last week. That's a year after Mar-a-Lago. More than a year, 14 months after the search warrant was executed. He had 14 more months to go fess up and turn in his documents, and here you go, and they're all yours and not mine. I took out a couple things that I like, and let's avoid an indictment. And that's what Chris Keiss and other advisors around him were telling him to do, which he rejected because he believed, like Tom Fitton, the non-lawyer crackpot, told him, that under the Presidential Records Act, that's what governs, he can keep it all. And that's not what it says. And that's not the law that's applicable. That's not the criminal law that's applicable. So, not that I ever had any sympathy for Donald Trump, but that is the timeline for those that are wondering. This went negotiations and discussions led by Alex Cannon right after he left office, Trump left office. And then only when the National Archives said, at 15 boxes, there's more. And there were witnesses that were reporting there was more back at Mar-a-Lago and other places. And then he was hiding the 84 box, the remaining 84 boxes. And then he was hiding the remaining 64 boxes. Then he was hiding the remaining 30 boxes. Then he was hiding the top secret 100 classified top secret, documents. And he's still not indicted at this point, But he's it's like hurtling down the road in a Ferrari at 250 miles an hour when the bridge is out ahead. But that's Donald Trump. And that's why he's going to be the first convicted, at least once, if not multiple times, former president of the United States. Because this is how he operated his presidency and kleptocracy. This is how he operated on Jan 6th and just before the election, during the election, after the election, all the way to certification of Joe Biden as our president. That's it. He's been pressure testing the guardrails of democracy from the moment he took the oath of office. From that moment. And now, where is he? He's more indicted than he was ever elected to the presidency of the United States. And it's only going to get worse for him. He'll never occupy the White House again. Let me repeat it for people that follow us on the MeidasTouch network. Donald Trump will never occupy or get within 100 yards of the White House ever again. And the best thing we can hope for is that Donald Trump is nominated as the Republican nominee for president of the United States. Because I can't think in the history of American politics of a person who would be a weaker candidate, a dead-on-arrival candidate, than Donald Trump. And so, rather than fear it, although it's going to be buckle up, it's going to be a bumpy ride from now until Election Day, but he's never going to occupy that office. And that's just the reality of things. And the justice system works, and it's doing its job every day at the Department of Justice level with Jack Smith, Merrick Garland, and the rest of the career prosecutors, investigators, and career professionals of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. And that's where we are on this particular hot take, where we've revealed through the Washington Post that Chris Kise has been advising Donald Trump from the very beginning after the search warrant was executed to cut a deal, return the documents, and put this behind him. And Donald Trump instead relied on charlatans, snake oil salesmen, podcasters without law license, as I like to call them, and really super tight polo shirt wearing people like Tom Fitton. This is Michael Popak on Legal AF. I'm a co-anchor. We do hot takes like this when we put them all together in a full-length podcast. Goes about an hour in length on Wednesdays and Saturdays, also only on the MeidasTouch network. Give me a thumbs up. It helps with the algorithms, helps with the quality and quantity of what we provide you here on the MeidasTouch network. Signals to us in binary way that we should keep doing what we're doing. We should keep reporting what we're reporting as frequently as we're reporting. And then you can follow me, Michael Popak, on all things social media at MS Popak. This is Michael Popak, Legal AF reporting.
At MeidasTouch, we are unapologetically pro-democracy, and we demand justice and accountability. That's why we're spreading our message to Convict 45. That's right, gear up right now with your Convict 45 tees and pins at store.meidastouch.com. That's store.meidastouch.com.